Hello, welcome back to Learning with Ms. H. As you can see, I have my hair all pulled back today, no jewelry, nothing dangling. That's because I'm getting ready to record some demonstrations for you. I've got several experiments I'm going to run today all at once. So I have my safety goggles ready to go, all of my supplies out, organized by experiment that I'm going to do, and let's get busy recording some of these demonstrations. Hopefully you enjoy these. A few you'll be able to actually do yourself at home. For this demonstration, we are going to learn how to grow copper crystals. We have a tube that can be sealed, water. Distilled is preferred, but tap water is fine. I'm at my house, so I'm using tap water. I have a clear glass cup that I'm going to put my tube into just to hold it. I have kosher salt. You can use table salt. Kosher salt is preferred. These are my copper crystals. A plain makeup remover pad, cotton, and iron nails. You need to make sure that these are not galvanized, and you need to make sure that there's no rust or corrosion on them. If there is, you can use a steel wool pad to scrape it off with. I also have a pen because I'm going to need to draw on the cotton pad, and I have a plastic chopstick. This is just so I have something to push stuff down into the tube. You can use a pen or a pencil. Make sure that you don't use something that you're going to eat from, because this setup can actually cause corrosion on your steel flatware if you use like a knife or a spoon handle or something like that. So I'm using this. If you're at school, you'll have possibly a glass stir rod or some type of plastic piece to do that with. So let's get into it. We're going to open our plastic tube here, and we are going to pour in approximately 1 inch of these crystals. The tray is just here because it does get messy. So I'm going to unscrew the top of this and pour these crystals in. We don't need a lot of them. I'm going to pour in about 1 inch of these. So we've got about 1 inch worth of the blue crystals. I'm going to set that in the glass. This is exactly what the glass is here for. It's basically a stand for our tube. And we're done with these. I'm going to set them to the side. Make sure you are also wearing your safety goggles. Make sure you have these on at all times. You are working with a chemical here. And we're going to go ahead and tap this down. There's a lot of empty space in between the crystals. So we're going to tap it down, get it packed in as much as we can. And then we are going to, let me get in here, take the water, and we're going to pour it in just a little bit at a time. I generally like to run it down the edge. That's way too much. I'm going to pour some of it off. That's why I run it down the edge. We want it to just cover the crystals. Okay, I can add a little bit back in. Oh, I just dumped it everywhere. That's why the tray is here. So we're gonna dump it in there just above the crystals, tap it down. We're gonna soak that up again. Let me sort of clean up my mess here a little bit. Okay. We're gonna soak that up, so it's gonna be fine. Now we're gonna get into our pad here. And we want to draw circles on this pad, 2 of them, that will just barely fit in the tube. So we're going to use the cap and we're going to draw around it. And we're actually going to do that twice because we're going to need 2 of them. And then we're going to take a pair of scissors and cut these out. Just to be clear, I'm not worried about corrosion on the tray because of the spill, because we only have 1 component added yet. It's the reaction that causes the corrosion. 1. This experiment is actually very forgiving in its measurements. I'm going to set that to the side. They don't have to be exact, but you're going to take this piece of cotton and you are going to place it in the tube, and you are just going to push it down so it rests on top of this layer you just made. And you're going to push it down in there so it covers the layer. And you don't want air bubbles, so you want to tamp it down in there. So it covers it up. Okay, I think we're in here now and we've gotten rid of the air bubbles. I don't see any air bubbles, so this is going to set here. The next thing we're going to do is add our salt layer. So we're going to take our kosher salt. This just doesn't go down in between the cotton to fall down into the copper layer, so that makes it a lot nicer. Regular salt will work just fine. Need to pop the top off of this. Alright, we are into the kosher salt. And this, we need about half as much. Tap it down again. And it will start turning green on you. That's the reaction starting to happen. And we are going to top the salt with water again. Tap it down. We're going to try and remove our air bubbles here. So we have no air bubbles. I'm going to do just a tiny touch more water to make it a little bit easier to remove those air bubbles. Okay, And then we have our last piece of cotton gonna go in. And that's gonna go down on top of the salt. And again, we're going to remove air bubbles. I'm going to do just a touch more water. You want the water to be just above the salt level so you can get rid of, see this air bubble right here? That right there, that's got to go. All right. We are now air bubble free. Once you're finished with this and it's started, you want to leave it sit and leave it alone. While you're setting it up, you can mess with it, just be gentle. You are going to need 3 nails. And remember that we are going to inspect these to make sure that they're nice and clean, there's no corrosion on them. Okay. And then you're going to take and put them all 3 in here. And you want to kind of tripod them when you put them in. You want them to be a little bit separated from each other. So I am actually going to maneuver these. I want this one to be on that side over there. There we go. And there. So you want them to not be touching each other, and they need to be just barely into the salt, through that cotton, touching the salt. There we go. And you'll see almost immediately that orange, that's not rust happening. Go ahead and pause this and see if you can come up with an explanation. Tell me what's going on there. Tell me what's happening. Once you've got your 3 nails in here and they're all going down into the salt layer, there we go, through the cotton into the salt layer, you're going to go ahead and fill this the rest of the way with water. Can you see that? Into the salt layer. And the salt layer is turning green from the chemical reaction that's happening. You're going to go ahead and fill this the rest of the way up, all the way to the top. Make sure I'm over the tray here and in view of the camera. All the way to the top. Cap it off. And then this is what you've got. So I'm going to move the camera up a little bit here. Can you see that? So you have the blue copper, then you have your salt here, and you have your nails. And you can see this orange red creeping up the nails here. So I'm going to set this down in my glass. And we are going to leave this to sit and not mess with it. And it's going to take about a week, but we'll check back in on it every few days to see how it's doing. And I'll put an update at the end of the video. This is what it looks like right now. It's a little bit hard to tell through the glass, but if you look right through here, you can see the red creeping up the nail. Here's the top of it. The copper sulfate is dissolving up into the salt layer. When those mix with the iron from the nail, it's causing a single replacement reaction to occur, resulting in the formation of the copper crystals. The speed of this reaction relies entirely on how you set up the experiment. The more air bubbles you have in the tube, the longer it will take for the reaction to start. The air doesn't have any direct effect on the reaction itself, but those air bubbles will make it harder for the reactants to reach each other when they're moving around inside the tube, which then will cause the delay in the reaction. To see crystal growth as early as possible, you need to make sure you eliminate those air bubbles. In the demonstration video, the tube had very few air bubbles in it, so the crystals started growing right away, and we're able to see really good crystal formation by day 3. Remember that this can take up to 7 days to start seeing crystal growth, depending on how much air you have. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time.